Yo, what's good, y'all? Welcome to the John Katz Show, episode number 28. Thank you so much for tuning in, subscribing, all that stuff. As you can see, if you're watching on YouTube, I'm not in the regular studio right now. It's probably really echoey. So if it sounds like I'm in an auditorium, I apologize. A little bit of a temporary setup right now. So I'll be back in a permanent studio again soon. So forgive me. It's a lot of tile, a lot of hard surfaces. Anybody that knows acoustics knows that a big room with hard surfaces is not good for audio. So I apologize for the echo. I won't mention it again. And I appreciate y'all for listening. Last week, I did a show, just kind of off the cuff about life and positivity and did some quotes and poems and things like that. I want to keep going with that exact type vibe. Anyone that's listened knows it's been mostly a political show. So, fuck the politics for now. There's enough people getting into Rona and all that other stuff on social media, all that craziness. I'm gonna leave that to some other people for now. I feel I have a lot more to offer in the way of positivity, life lessons, insights. I call myself a philosopher. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to get on here and philosophize. Seriously though, there's so much noise and it's coming from 10 trillion directions that even when I feel I get into those arenas and I do have unique points and and I'm not going to get away from it, because that is the part I like. I like being a voice of reason, even among, those crazy, intense arenas where people are just going at each other's throats. But I'm taking a break from that for now. Big picture, there's more important things in life sometimes, most of the time. I would have always said forever that everything's more important than politics. And the political stuff started to get a little scary for a lot of people, and it took over the conversation. And I think what really started to make me want to get away from it a little too, it's like I would post things on social media that were not political at all in nature. Just commenting on a movie or some sort of sociological event. And people would jump in and be like, all right, MAGA this or that. It's like people are just relating politics to everything now. It's so much tribalism. My reaction is then, let's get away from that. Let's get back to the things, the commonalities. I say it all the time. Politics aside, how informed, some people are very informed. Some people are not. There's a million reasons why people are going to be very tribal. All that aside, people do really want the same things on a base level at the end of the day. So we're going to keep it positive. Got a little wound on my back here. There's a good positive thing. I mentioned this, I think in one of my first episodes. You guys should for sure get screened at a dermatologist somewhat regularly. Especially if you're somebody that laid out in the sun a lot when you were young, like I did with the Hawaiian Tropic Zero SPF oils and all. You want to get that stuff early before it's an issue. I didn't go till I was 40. I'm 42 now. And they found all kinds of stuff. I've probably had since then 7 things scraped and removed. They scrape a little sample and then they send it off to the lab. If it comes back suspicious, then they just, they excise the whole thing. They take the whole thing out. They cauterize the wound. The way the doctor explained it to me was, let's say a malignant, cancerous malignant thing on your body is a 10 of 10 or what have you. These types of things would be a 2 or 3 out of 10. They're abnormal and they'd be likely to develop into something malignant in the future. So it's so minor, they just numb it, they scrape it out, and it heals so quickly. And, you could be saving yourself worlds of problems down the line. So, it's worth at least doing an initial screening. I mean, a lot of people probably don't have all the weird little stuff I have, but they just found another one. it's funny because I told the guy I was already planning on doing this next time. Every time I go in there, they find something and they go, okay, let me take a biopsy. Let me take a sample, and then we'll send it to the lab. And when it heals, you come back, and then we take the whole thing out. And it's like, you got to cut me twice. I got to come back in a few weeks. It's such a pain. So I was like, they should just take it the first time. And I realized why they can't. And he explained it as well, because when I was there and he found the thing on the back, I go, listen, I said, you're batting 100 on these guesses. Just take the whole thing off now. Then I only have to heal from it once. I don't have to come back. He's like, I'd love to, but insurance-wise, we have to, show that it's meets a certain category before we can do the full excise. He goes, let me see what I can do. So he came back. He still called it a biopsy, but he took like the whole thing, so I probably won't have to go back. So maybe I shouldn't be telling this story. I'm not getting this guy in trouble. This is a total hypothetical here, I'm telling. But no, really, it's one of the many things. Get physicals, get EKGs and blood work and all that kind of stuff. The best way to stay healthy, in my opinion, is preventative health care. You know what I mean? You hear it about everything. If only they caught it earlier, if only they treated it earlier, it applies to so many things. So if you're constantly getting checked, you're far more likely to catch so many things before they become much more serious problems. Goes without saying. I am actually in the process of quitting smoking. Something I'll share with you guys. I never really talk about being a smoker because it's gross. And why not? Again, I'm in a mindset lately of, nothing to be ashamed of. Listen, if I'm going to have a podcast and I'm going to get on here and talk about life, I gotta delve into my own life as well. It's got to be relatable. So, in any case, I've been smoking since I was a kid. Other than, I quit really once. I tried to patch when I was like in my 20s for a minute. I don't know, a few days. And then a couple years ago, I quit for a couple months, but I never fully got off like nicotine and stuff. At the time I quit a couple of years ago, I was vaping like salt nicotine, which is like this really strong vape. You need like a special device to burn it at a higher heat even than like regular vape. That's the problem. I get into something, I go extreme. The vaping, it's so funny. Vaping, it was introduced as an alternative to smoking, and then it became its own thing. And now you see all these anti-vaping commercials trying to get the kids off vaping. Smoking's not cool for kids anymore, thank God. When I was young, when I was 13, 14, 8th, 9th grade, like if you didn't smoke at parties and after school or whatever, not that you would have been ostracized, but it was just so common and it was considered cool. And it's definitely not considered cool now. They look at you like a damn leper. You walk down the street now with a cigarette and mothers hurtle around their children and cover their faces and they run off like you got the bubonic plague. It's quite something compared to anyone that grew up. I was born 79. I was a kid in the 80s. Shit, nobody looked at anybody smoking a cigarette with any kind of crooked eye. Every indoor place had smoking sections too. You could smoke on airplanes still when I was a kid. You could smoke any restaurant, etc. If they had a section for it at all. Some places you could just smoke. But in any case, I'm 42, and I didn't want to be a smoker in my 40s. That's why I quit a couple years ago. I always thought, look, if I could quit by 40, I could probably undo a lot of that damage. And I also take like so many healthy supplements and do all these healthy things. And to be honest, my biggest flaw is I just kind of rely on genetics. And I go, I'm naturally very thin, and like even my cardio for a smoker, like as I'm trying to quit, one of the things I've been doing is walking tons around the neighborhood. And other than like my ligaments and stuff will start getting sore in my knee, but I went from smoking heavy to just walking like 7 miles or something and not even, really breathing heavy from it. So I kind of always just thought, okay, like you can get away with it because of whatever, genetics or disposition or whatever the fuck I was thinking. By the way, sorry for I'm going to try to say curses. For all you religious peeps out there, by the way, if I ever take, I don't even realize it's a bad habit. If I ever take the Lord's name in vain, just forgive me. I don't mean any disrespect. It's more of like a, I don't know, what do they call it? Idiom? Is that even, I have no idea if I'm even using that correctly. Idiom. In any case, yeah, I don't mean any offense by it. Something I got in the habit of saying a long time ago. And I shouldn't say that because it is offensive to certain people. And if I was religious like that, I would probably find that very offensive as well. Just get that out of the way. So anyway, with the smoking, I've been walking a ton, and I've actually, and this is, part of what I'm trying to get off of now too. Like I said, I've never really fully been off nicotine. And, tobacco itself is kind of a different addiction than nicotine. And so I've been dipping sometimes. So where I grew up in Virginia, everybody used to dip, not chew, but dip, like the Skull Mint, the long cut, and the Skull Wintergreen was big. Kids were always dipping, young age, man. The times have changed so much, dude. These kids, bro, look, it's obviously not good to dip when you're in middle school, but I don't know. These kids will just never experience riding bikes without helmets down through, paths in the woods and all over town and riding in pickup trucks in the back and dipping and playing dodgeball and all kinds of crazy stuff. I don't know. Listen, there's a lot of good and bad that goes along with a lot of things, but it's good to get dirty when you're young. I think it's good to get hurt a little bit. It's good to experience things that make you really kind of sick and uncomfortable. You're not going to die from having a beer when you might die from riding in the back of a pickup. That's actually a bad example, but you know what I mean. Kids should be skinning their knees a lot. They should be getting hurt in the woods and bleeding and having a lot of scabs and punching each other. Boys, not in the face in a mean way. Just, you don't want to be too protected. You don't want to be so in such a bubble. I'm getting way off topic here. I was just kind of thinking of my childhood versus a lot of the way I see kids being treated today with these helicopter parents. And I just think it really is such a disservice. And their whole lives, they'll just kind of, if you're going to experience that stuff, you're supposed to do it when you're a kid because you have that, parachute to fall. You get it out of the way. If you never do it, I feel like you're always going to be missing a chunk of your life where you never just kind of got to be a free spirit and truly just kind of explore the world in a way before all, the trials of life and all that stuff got in the way and intervened, and there'd be certain cons. You can't go out and act like a lunatic when you're 28 and have a job and rent. But so, yeah. And also I've been drinking a ton of coffee, for whatever reason. It's true. Addicts, if you go to AA or NA or whatever, any of those, see, I stopped myself there. If you go to any of those type meetings, they drink coffee by the gallons. They smoke cigarettes by the gallons. I just mentioned the other day too. It's weird they don't have a cigarettes anonymous, because it is one of the hardest things to quit. I don't think there's a tobacco anonymous. I bet you could kind of use the 12 steps. I guess they don't view it as such a destructive thing in the same way, which is odd because it kills you. It's like the number one killer other than obesity, which could be, linked to overeating and heart disease and stuff. Smoking related illness is like the number one killer linked directly to an external source like that. So you would think it's so hard and every smoker I know says they want to quit. There's no smoker who's like, I love the fact that I smoke. By the way, this is turning into a whole anti-smoking episode. Who the F would have ever thought John Katz would be getting on here doing a Let's Stop Smoking for Our Health episode? In a trillion years, never, ever, ever. And I didn't even plan on talking about smoking. I didn't know what I was going to talk about. I sure as hell didn't think I was going to do 15 minutes on smoking cigarettes and quitting smoking. But look, it goes along with what I was even saying last week with the getting healthy. I talked about Jordan Peterson, treat yourself like someone you're in charge of taking care of. And you never would if you were in charge of helping was the quote. If you were in charge of helping someone or taking care of someone, you wouldn't let them smoke cigarettes And something that really hit home with people in my life that I talked to after, my sister, she was saying how the part about that when you mistreat yourself, you're actually hurting the people who love you, because people who care about you, if you're mistreating yourself, it hurts them. You're being selfish to them. And smoking is just a perfect example of that. And I told her, and my mom's probably watching this. I hope she should know not to say something to me, because if anyone knows anything about me, it's I don't want to hear. It's like when you want to really do something for yourself for the right reasons, and then other people are like cheer you on too much. It kind of takes away your spirit to do it in a weird way. I don't know. It's a weird reaction that I have, or a lot of people probably have. This podcast or Twitter or whatever, it's like my safe space. So I feel like I'm just talking more to, people that I don't even want to say an audience. It sounds so stupid. I don't have an audience, but whoever listeners, I should say. And then, people on Twitter and social media. So this is more meant for the ether, not for necessarily the people directly in my life, although I do appreciate them listening as well. It's just weird how, I guess what I'm saying is, it's weird how you kind of get more shy and embarrassed around people Like when I do this pod, it feels weird when I know like my mom or sister or whoever listening to it, in a way that it doesn't to know that a stranger is listening to it, if that makes sense. But yeah, we only get the one life. I keep saying it over and over and over all the time. You get one life. Why poison yourself? Why limit yourself? Why make yourself less healthy? It's like the most important. I interviewed a while back on here the actor Lilo Brancato from A Bronx Tale and all that stuff. He went to prison for years. I won't get into that whole story. But something he said to me on that show, because he got clean in prison. He had a drug problem. He was an addict, yada, yada, yada. He said to me, he would rather have his health and be in prison than be free and not have his health, have a health problem. And it's crazy to think about for a second, but then you go, you know what, it's true, because, without your health, you have nothing. Freedom is everything, and all I talk about on here is freedom, but what good is freedom if you can't breathe, and you can't get around, and you're laying in bed and taking pills and hooked up to machines and shit, so it's like, that's not freedom either, I guess. I guess that's the point. I don't know, I'm saying it in my head, is that if you don't have health, it doesn't matter what your environment is. You don't have freedom without health. I even thought about that recently in a different way, because like my shoulder was hurting really bad. I tore my shoulder a few weeks ago or a couple months ago. And before that, I was having a bad vertigo issue. And both times I thought to myself, and this is an interesting point too, because, they always talk about men complain more when we're sick, like the man cold, and it's true. Men do for sure bitch way more, and I'm guilty of it too. But I think it's because our sense of health and freedom and physical ability is so tied into how we feel. So like when my shoulder is torn out or I don't have vertigo, subconsciously I feel like, okay, if I have to move around right now and do something physical, or like defend somebody or defend myself, or, fend off an animal or something. It's like, I'm not thinking that literally, but I think it's so tied in. It's like, oh, if I had to get up and do something right now that was difficult, I wouldn't be able to, or I don't know if I'd be able to. And I think that's why we're like, oh, I feel so shitty. I can't move. Because it's like, whereas a woman is not really relying on her physical prowess as much. She's not walking around, thinking about those same types of things, just on a very base biological level. So I think that's why you see so many women, like they have a cold, man, they just get up and go. They don't even let it stop them. Just like, yeah, my throat hurts, I'm going to work. But yeah, your health is so important. It's so tied into your feelings of freedom and ability. And that goes for women too. That was just a little side anecdote that I thought of. But for sure, health is equally as important to everybody. And without it, everything else, becomes just limited. Your freedom becomes limited. Your ability to do anything in the world becomes limited. And we take it for granted. And like I say about so many things, it's so hard to, this is something I've talked about my whole life, and it's weird to conceptualize, but when you feel a certain way, physically, emotionally, what have you, it's so hard to remember that feeling, like in a true way. You go, oh, I was so sick that week, but like when you're in it and you're hugging the toilet and just begging God for mercy because you're just doubled over with the flu or whatever, it's like you really don't remember what that's like. And that goes for all kinds of emotional states too. And you think in those moments, you think, well, this is how I'm going to feel forever. And then when you feel a different way, you don't even remember feeling that other way. And then sometimes it gets sparked by a scent, by a song, by anything, a picture, somebody bringing up a memory to you. And then boom, you go, oh, wait, that's how I felt during that time. It's such a strange thing. And we take so many things for granted, I think, because of that ability. I think it's just like a survival mechanism because, like I was saying on here even last week, you can't live in your, if it would destroy you to carry certain things forever. It's almost like you have to kind of scab over things, move on, and as they say, time heals everything. But like, especially when you feel good, it's so hard to remember when you feel bad. And I think the reason I bring this up in relation to the smoking is, when I feel sick, or if I ever feel shitty, or if, achy, or I have some weird ailments or whatever, I always go, man, I really just got to quit smoking. It can't hurt. It's got to be affecting so many things. But then when I feel good, I'm like, oh, okay, I feel pretty good. I can get away with it. It's like, I think people do that all over the place to justify all types of behavior and then continue because they go, I feel good now. But you really do have to, like I said at the beginning, preemptively say, okay, this will lead to something else. This thing on my back, if they don't cut it off now, it's going to lead to something more serious. Yeah, I feel okay now. Been smoking since that. But if I keep going, I'm not. And then it's going to be, bite my tongue, too late at some point. So I need to cut that shit out now. That's the point. And that's really what I'm working on in all facets of my life lately so much, is just kind of getting outside myself and just kind of seeing everything from an outside perspective. I find it so helpful, whether it's the smoking thing, whether it's just life in general and a million other issues. Being stuck in your own head and satisfying that weird voice in your head and whatever demon that is, like I always say, we live with our own brains 24/7. Each of us does. It's so damn hard to get inside. I'm as sensitive and empathetic as anyone, I think, and I know a lot of sensitive and empathetic people, but to truly step outside that realm, and you shouldn't do it for an extended, look, you got to do it. Obviously, my point of saying it is it's going to help you throughout all types of situations. But in general, even people who live with other people and have families and kids, whatever, like whatever that voice is in people's heads, whatever the stuff you could never verbalize and would never verbalize, those innermost subconscious thoughts and desires and insecurities and whatever all that shit mixed in there is, it's like, it's so different for everybody. It's yeah, we all want the same things, but someone else's perspective of life and the way that they view the world and the way that they feel is also vastly, vastly different. So like, you're going to save yourself so much frustration and agony if you just even constantly reminding yourself of that, because somebody's doing something that's bothering you or that you don't understand, or somebody's hurting you, or whatever the case may be. It's so helpful to just go, you know what? Wait a minute. I don't understand it. And maybe I never will understand it, but I at least understand the fact that it's the realest thing for that person. And apply it to yourself and then go, look, they're never going to understand this weird thing that I feel or can't put into words, but I just accept that they have those exact same things going on with them. It's going to help you in so many situations. Like, and here's a rare thing I was thinking of recently and talking about, which is how many people do you know that actually get true joy from other people's joy? Like, that's such a rare thing. And I'll think about that for a minute. When I say joy from other people's joy, so like, let's say you had, some sort of trip coming up, right? And you didn't want to go. To you, it sounded like a nightmare. Let's say you were going to an amusement park and you hate amusement parks and you hate lines and crowds and the heat and all that stuff. But everyone else is really excited to go. Your family or your friends or your kids or whoever. And you went, you know what? Forget about just saying, you know what, I'm going to go so that, to please them. It's deeper than that. They're going to enjoy it so much that I'm going to get joy out of their enjoyment. So even though I'm not going to personally enjoy these exact types of activities, seeing the people that I love and who love me get joy, that's going to give me joy. And I think that does come naturally to some people, but I think it doesn't for most. I do think you can develop it. Like I'm saying here, you got to consciously and cognitively step outside yourself. And I think when you first experience it, if you experience it, you'll like it and you'll want to keep doing it. Like, it's kind of like just bringing your wall down a little bit. I'm always been a wall up kind of guy. And I don't like to call myself selfish, but I would say for sure, as empathetic as I am, as sensitive as I am, if you looked at my life on paper, I have for sure been guilty of putting my own comfort ahead of other people's comfort, no question. And I for sure would be the first person to be like, I ain't going on that trip. That sounds like a shitty time. And anytime I have actually forced myself to do something I didn't want to do like that, I always ended up having a great time. And I think it did come from watching the other people enjoy it too. I've always strived, if there was ever a thing that I wanted for myself, from like a personality trait standpoint, if I ever went, wow, I really want to change something about myself, or I'm so envious of people, it would be just having my guard down and being spontaneous and just kind of doing things on the fly and being open to different things without planning it. Like the way my mind works, and I'm sure a lot of you guys can relate. It's like, let's say I have a doctor's appointment. I had one the other day. Okay, it was at like 1:45. So I wake up and I'm already going, okay, appointment's at 1:45. You leave the house at 1. You get in the shower by 12. You'll eat by this time. And then I keep kind of repeating that to myself, even subconscious. Like, just because I have this out of the ordinary thing scheduled, it kind of takes over my brain for the day. I don't know how to just kind of like let go and go, yeah, I got a doctor later. I'll look at it once and then I'll go. I was always envious of my dad and other people, because they could just kind of get up and go and just whatever. You want to hop in the car, drive 4 hours. You want to hop on a plane, fly across the country, fly back, whatever it is. Sure, let's go. If I'm going on a trip, I'm mapping that shit out. I want to know how many miles, how long I'm going to be in the car. I want to book the hotel in advance, and I want to know, exactly where I'm staying. I want to know where in the hotel the room is. That stuff's not healthy. It's, look, a lot of people are organized in a good way. I'm not saying don't be organized or on time and responsible. I mean, don't obsess about details that are going to be okay. And some of the best experiences you're going to have are when you do just kind of let go and go, yeah, I'll ride out there with you guys, hop in the car. Don't worry, is it going to be 2 hours or 4 hours, or exactly where you're stopping, or who's staying where? Figure it out. So I've always wanted that. I always felt like if I had that gene, I could just rule the freaking world with it. And or if I liked peopling more, as interesting as I find people and all that, it's like I am such a misanthropic person sometimes. And it's another thing I try not to be. Listen, I'll talk to anyone. I get along with everybody, all that. Anybody in my life would say that John gets along with anybody from any walk of life. So it is kind of my number. But on a deeper level, I'm always guarded. Even though I'm very accepting of everyone else, which is great, always do that, I don't give any of myself back to them. And that's a huge issue. And that's what I want to work on. And that's the kind of energy I'm trying to get more of going in my life, physically, mentally, emotionally. I really am, just call it a midlife crisis, call it whatever. I'll say it a million times, but until people actually sit and conceptualize it, it's such a simple statement, but you really don't understand it until you really sit and meditate on it, which is, you only get this one life. That's it. You get one life. It's short. It's it. Your lights are out. It's done. It's it. It's over. They always use the analogy. The entire human existence. Think about this for a minute. If the earth, and I didn't come up with this, obviously, this goes back to when I was in grade school. If the earth's lifespan, whatever, 4 billion years, however old it is, was a football field, the human existence from, beginning of humankind to now would be one blade of grass. And that's everybody, right? So that's going back to ancient Egypt and beyond, hundreds of thousands of years, nomads and wander-gatherers and things, and cavemen, whatever the fuck. So, and your life would be, one tiny razor thin shred off of that one blade of grass. You wouldn't even see it get sliced off. That's how small of a percentage it would be. Look, who knows what comes after this? I'm not going to get into religions and all those things. I happen to believe there is more than just this physical realm. I do personally believe that. I don't know what exact form that comes in, but to me, it would just simply, and I'll do a whole nother episode on this. Believe me, talk about philosophy. We could ponder our existence here forever. It would be the longest episode ever. Maybe we'll do that next time. We'll make that the next step. What are we doing here on Earth? Remind me to do that. Okay. In any case, if you're like me and you have, here's some advice I'll give. If you have certain fears or insecurities or whatever it is, seek out balance in your life. Seek out people who are going to, balance that out and push those envelopes, and where you can feed off the type of energy that you need to improve yourself. And then, maybe offer people the type of energy that they need to improve themselves. So everybody's got different strengths and balances and all that, and challenge yourself most of all. One of the most therapeutic things I ever did years ago, I drove for Lyft, the car service. I talked here before. That sounds ridiculous to say it's therapeutic, but I talked on here last week about, my own anxiety and social anxieties and stuff. One of the things when I was young, not a teenager, it didn't really hit me, my real bad issues, till I was maybe around 20, 19, 20, early 20s. When I was at my worst with the social anxiety, whatever, being in crowded places or being in traffic or anything where I was trapped or constricted. I mean, I would have, full on panic attacks, right? Just being stuck in traffic or, stuck in a crowded, dark place where it's too many people around or whatever. It's just these involuntary weird reactions. And I was able to get past that and do a lot of other things and handle it in much better ways. And it's gotten better and better throughout my life. However, at that time when it was really bad, when I was, let's say 20 years ago, I think it was right around 20, I was working at a hotel. I remember working at a hotel and this even coming up, which is I didn't want anyone riding in my car. I didn't want to be, it sounds bizarre to say, right? But And to this day, I'm a terrible passenger. Like, I don't want to be in someone else's car when they're driving, because that really is giving over full control. I'm still a control freak in a lot of ways. I do want to control. I'm obsessed with controlling my environment. And so, like, riding in someone else's car, still, I'll do it. But, I don't like, depending who the driver is too, it has a lot to do with it, if I'm being honest. But me driving, I know I don't have an issue. But I had an issue, and still maybe a tinge of, if other people in my car. It's like a responsibility for other people's lives. And I can't just fuck up or do something weird. And in any case, so I drove Lyft for a while. And it's funny because I would start out, I would do like late night. I go to some weird areas. And I always be like, all right, this is like a little sketchy. I'd have a little, and like once I drove that first person around, and I would talk to everybody. So that's the other thing. It sounds gross. Like, even now, it's like, what? You want some stranger in your car in the middle of the night? Like, forgetting even just the risk. It seems like a weird thing to do for like a therapeutic exercise. But if you drive 10 strangers around in a night and have random conversations with people, and they're just kind of in your car, in your personal area, it really does force you. It's like you would never do that in life. You would never, invite some stranger into your kitchen or your living room and sit down and have a conversation with them and listen to music with them for a half hour. But you're taking this complete stranger from some completely other place with a totally different perspective and totally different, set of experiences. And now you're driving them in. It's not even like when you get in a cab or an Uber or something. And by the way, you can kind of do some of that as well, but your own car is just very personal, and, you got your own music on. And I don't know. I would say, of all the things I did kind of inadvertently for therapy throughout my life, if I would drive Lyft for a night, I never felt so, what did I say I was before? A misanthropic person? I never felt so I never felt so, what's the opposite? Anthropic? That can't be right. I never felt so sociable as an antisocial person. And again, I don't want to be some bubbly dude out there, mixing it up with strangers and trying to be a social butterfly. That's not what I mean at all. But if you're not interacting with people on a real level throughout your life and throughout the day, it's like, what the fuck? What are you even doing here on earth if you're not doing that? If you're not doing some of that in some capacity, and forgetting even your friends and your loved ones and all your family and everybody, because you should be doing that with them, you should be doing it with complete strangers. And even if it's on social media, having some meaningful conversations, not debates about politics or whatever. That's not what I'm talking about. Sometimes I'll see like replies in my thread, and like I'll tweet something and two random people will get into a conversation with each other, some philosophical debate about something, not heated at all. And it'll go on for days, and I'll, casually browse it and catch up. And, they'll have had now this long, in-depth, meaningful conversation with some complete before that stranger. And they carry that with them for life, potentially. They may not have ever been able to have that conversation with someone in their own life, or had somebody understand the nuance of what they were trying to say prior to that in their own life. And now they just were able to kind of get all those thoughts out and have somebody hit it back, volley it back to them, and have this, amazing conversation. And so you could do that with a Lyft driver. You could do that on Twitter. You could do that at Walgreens. Listen, I'm not on some We Are the World tip or anything like that, but I am on a you only live once tip. And people should be open to and seeking out as many different perspectives and things. Why waste time just closing yourself off and living in your own stupid head? We get it. We can be in our own stupid heads anytime we want. And I live there way too often. So I'm finding that I enjoy not being in there so much and exploring other people's heads a little bit more. It's it's refreshing and it lets me see myself in a different light. I can go back to my own head at night. I got to try to fall asleep and listen to my own weird voice again. Or when I just do this podcast and just blab about it all so you guys can be as bored as I am with my internal dialogue. But so I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up. I'll keep you guys posted with the whole smoking thing. I'm going to do a full detox now. So what I mean by that is no cigarettes, no dip, I'm going to try not to do coffee. That's going to be tough. I want to do like at least 2 days of just like clean, clear fluids, clean liquids, tons of water, some Gatorades and stuff, get the electrolytes going, drink smoothies. I just want to flush it all out, to prolong it and make it, ripping that Band-Aid off so slow. I don't know. I'm already feeling physically ill from it, so I might as well just be iller. And the quicker that I get that out of the way, the better. Then it's just a mental game. So I've been at it like a week now, and I'm really proud of myself, and I'm walking a ton, and I'm going to keep doing that. I'll keep you guys posted, and I hope everybody had a really, really great week and an amazing weekend upcoming. And I really appreciate each and every one of you for tuning in and listening and subscribing. And I will be back soon with another episode. Stay positive, stay motivated, stay inspired, seek out inspiration, seek out people in your life that are going to give you the kind of energy that you need to keep moving forward. Don't get stuck inside your own head. And I'll see you guys in a few days. Appreciate you. Love you. Have a great weekend.